Hello, everybody. We're just going to kick this off now in 1 second. Thank you very much for attending. We have a lot of people on from different areas around the world. We've got people as far away as Nigeria, Northern Europe, Eastern Europe, and UK and Ireland. What we're going to do today is we're going to go through a slide deck, which I'm just going to start now. And as part of this slide deck, we're going to go through the agenda of what we're going to cover today. So the two presenters here, I'll introduce you to Damien Murphy, who's the main presenter on the case studies and what is Acclino. And I'm Stuart MacDonald. I will be moderating what's going on this webinar. So just before we start, a little bit of an agenda here. We're going to go through what is Acclino, why Lean for Services, where to start, Acclino Process Transformation Framework, case study, Q&A, and how Acclino can help in your organization. So from that, we will initiate the conversation with Damien around what is Acclino and why you're at this particular webinar today.
Well, good morning, everybody, and thank you for joining us from far afield and local. I'm going to kick off just by telling you a small little bit about Acclino. Acclino is a business which has grown from 20 years of consultancy, training, and education, all in the process transformation space. RM Consulting, who provide the content for Acclino, worked in numerous organizations around the world in what started out as lean manufacturing. And about 10 years ago, the Acclino team transitioned into the lean for services space. And it is a different world because in the manufacturing world, you can see the product and you can very quickly see if something is out of control. And all of the lean tools were designed specifically for working in the manufacturing environment. But what Acclino has done is we have taken fit for purpose tools and we have distilled Lean, Six Sigma and project management into its essence and a single framework to help organizations transform their processes in a service environment. Service organizations, their processes are transactional, which means that they're invisible by nature. When we go into a service organization, we see the people, we see the systems and the data that they work on and the technology. But what we need to do is bring that process to life. And Acclino has successfully done that. So Acclino has its 100% focus in the service sectors, bringing all of those processes to life and helping organizations to reap the benefit that manufacturing companies have reaped for many, many decades now. Acclino focuses on simplicity of language. We have a simple methodology, and we have brought this into a framework, and we have now put it into a training structure. So we've got best practice, simplicity, a small number of tools, and a framework in a digital e-learning platform. And this e-learning platform can be used in organizations who are starting out in their lean journey or who are advanced on their lean journey, because this will help you to scale up and to roll out and to be very, very consistent in your message.
And based on that then, what we're going to do is, if anybody has any questions, there's a little hand icon on your desktop. If you want to raise a question, just type in your question, and Roisin is the moderator here today. She will aggregate all of the questions into the Q&A session later on, as you can see from this agenda. So what we're going to do next is we're going to press on with the slide deck and go into why Lean for Services. Okay. So in why Lean for Services, there's three important questions here, which I'm going to pose to Damien one at a time. What are the challenges that service organizations face today?
Okay, Stuart. Today, right across the globe, service organizations face a multiplicity of challenges, and we are coming at this from the process transformation perspective. So the first thing is that common to everybody, that organizations want to manage cost. Organizations want to be cost effective so that they can be competitive in the marketplace. And those that are cost effective can be competitive and will survive into the future. It's also very important for service organizations that they meet their customer expectations. For example, from a quality perspective, from a lead time perspective, and from their processes being user-friendly. So let me go back to the quality piece here. Organizations will thrive on the quality of the service that they provide, and what they need to meet their customers' expectations on a daily basis and on a continuous basis. And those quality products need to be delivered on time. So more and more people can go on the internet and go to a website. If they don't get a response, they move on very quickly. If the website is good, they might engage with the organization, and then they'll finally get to talk to somebody in the organization, or they'll place an order online. And the timeline starts as soon as the customer places the order, either by email or by phone, and the wait game commences. Organizations that start young and have a small number of people can turn around their service offerings quite quickly. But as organizations grow and the number of people hired grows, then we start to become functionalized, and our processes start to attract waste and they start to slow down. And the biggest killer in every process is waiting. And waiting becomes inherent in processes and start to stretch out the lead time. And so I come to the user-friendly part of the process. So our processes need to be user-friendly, first of all, from the people working with the processes, and also from the people who engage with the process. But these are some of the process challenges that the customer and the organization share together.
And just on that is, why do process transformation then?
Why do process transformation? Well, if you look at any organization, the processes are the lifeblood of the organization. Most organizations have thousands of processes, but in every organization, or every functional part of every organization, there are core business processes. And the organizations will survive or die on the effectiveness of these processes. So transforming a process, in a nutshell, can transform your business. You can start a life-saving mission for your organization by transforming one of your core business processes. It is easy to do, but it is hard work. And what we have is a methodology that can help you to achieve that.
Okay. So what are the benefits then of a successful process transformation?
The benefits of a successful process transformation are multiple. However, when most teams come together, they set about to achieve one target, usually one target, as a critical to success factor in their process transformation. So they may go after shortening the lead time, or they may go after reducing the amount of inventory that they have there. But what happens is that multiple benefits will fall out from a streamlined process. For example, higher yields, cost reduction. Then you'll get factors like genuine employee engagement, employee upskilling, the promotion of teamwork, even reduced stress levels for the people working within the process. And more, what's coming out of a transformation is the introduction of standard work. And standard work is a nice way of saying that we, or a structured way of saying that we have a standard approach to doing the process. All too often in organizations where they don't have a standard approach, everybody will do the process slightly differently, and we get a different result, and we get different lead times. So one of the biggest benefits of transforming a process is getting this standard approach. On top of all of these benefits comes the biggest benefit, and this is the creation of additional business capacity for the organization. Because what we're doing in our processes is we're stripping out the waste from the process, and we're creating this opportunity to create additional capacity. This means that you've got free labor, you've got free capacity within your systems to take on more business. Your overheads are reduced and you become more competitive.
Moving on from that then, where do we start? What should we avoid doing, Damien?
Let's start, and this is the essence of this webinar. And again, I'm addressing organizations who are new to process transformation or lean thinking, or people who are already advanced in their journey. So I'm going to start with a couple of areas where I would recommend you don't start. And one of them is by introducing 5S into the organization. So 5S is it's an excellent tool, and in its simplest form, it's for housekeeping, and it does build standards across the organization. And one of the reasons I'm saying is that we should not start with a rollout of 5S is that while it does give you a good, very initial visual impact, it is actually a lot more difficult to implement than people think. So we can implement 5S maybe in one office and have a clean desk policy for the end of the day, and we can declutter the area, and we can try to standardize the approach to work in the day, and maybe label all of the shelves and the presses. But getting everybody to buy into a 5S program is challenging, and it becomes more difficult as you start to roll it out across the organization. It's quite easy for a small team of people to come together and with enthusiasm get your 5S program running. But as you start to roll it out, you get more resistance, and quite often the resistance comes from middle management. Leadership tends to buy in more quickly, and a very, very challenging piece for 5S is trying to maintain what you have. And maintaining what you have requires regular audits, and you know, it brings natural friction with it. So yes, 5S is a good tool, but from experience, my recommendation is do not start with a 5S program. Another approach that organizations take when they're starting out in their lean initiative is that they run multiple projects. Their goal can often be to get as many people involved as possible, and to get a lot of visibility on the walls, and to train people as fast as they can. This, however, runs into a different type of challenge. So to make this happen, you need people to facilitate it, and to do some coaching, and to bring people along. And very, very quickly, that resource becomes overstretched. And in fact, that resource spends most of their time doing project management as opposed to process transformation. And when you've got multiple small projects running in parallel, they tend to walk or move at a slow pace together. A third mistake that people make when in a service environment is they start to copy the manufacturing methodologies and tools. And quite simply, most of them don't work in the service environment. Some of them are too complex. For example, value stream mapping is a fantastic tool in the manufacturing world, but it is not that easy to bring into the service organization. And there are simpler and easier ways to do it.
I mean, where should we start then?
Our recommendation at Acclino is that in your organization, select one process. Select one process and build one team. And ideally, this process should be a process that is meaningful to the area or to the organization, and possibly a core process within your organization. But it's one that people will recognize as being a process, and that, because remember, when you do start, everybody in the outside will be looking in, and most people will be curious, and some people will want it to work, and other people may not for whatever reason. But just start with one process. And with that process that you select, you should have two goals in mind. The first goal is obviously to transform or streamline that process. And the second goal is that you're looking for proof of concept for you, for your team, and the organization. So you want to prove that this does work and that it didn't cost us an arm and a leg, and that we did reap the benefits, and that people did enjoy doing it, and that the benefits were felt by the people in the process, the benefits were felt by the organization, and most importantly, the benefits were felt by the customer. Now, don't just pick a process and say, we're going to transform this process. There has to be a good reason for transforming every process. We'll never start a process transformation for the sake of saying, let's see what we can get out of it. There has to be a good reason. And part of the Acclino methodology and thinking and training is that for every process transformation, there should be a burning platform. And the burning platform, ideally, should be pitched by a senior member in the organization. And this person would be maybe at a leadership level or management level.
So that's a very interesting statement. And just to bring that on a little bit, who needs to be involved in that process or that framework?
To kick off your first, or indeed any subsequent process transformation team, there are a number of key people who need to be involved. Every process transformation initiative requires a sponsor, an owner, a lean practitioner or a facilitator, and subject matter experts. So I'll take the sponsor first. The sponsor needs to be a senior member in the organization, preferably a member of the leadership team or the senior management team. And the sponsor has two roles. One is to create the burning platform. And by a burning platform, we need to say that this is important to the organization because. So we need to transform this process because A, it will enable us to grow the business, or B, if we don't transform the process, we may lose ground to our competitors, or we have a serious quality issue that we need to address. But there must be a good reason to get the buy-in from the team that this is important and we're not just doing it for the sake of doing it. The second key role of the sponsor is to hold the owner accountable for delivering the process transformation. And in doing so, the sponsor needs to get regular updates from the project owner. And if that project owner is running into difficulties or meets blockages, then the sponsor needs to go and maybe talk to his peers or her peers and make sure the doors get opened and things happen. Also, the owner might say the team needs a small amount of money for investment and the sponsor should be in a position to approve that. The next key member of the transformation team is the project owner. And maybe you might get confused between the word project and process. Just very quickly, a project has a once in a lifetime mission. So the team come together to transform a process and the team are the project team. But the process is something that gets repeated over and over again. So that was a slight divergence there. But the project owner ideally will be somebody who works very closely in or with the process, and they should have skin in the game. And what we mean by that is that they will continue to suffer the pain if the process is not transformed, or they will reap great benefit if it is transformed. The project owner should want to make a difference for the process. The project owner ideally will have the respect of their peers, and the team will want to work with the project owner. Excuse me. The project owner needs to have a number of skill sets, and these skill sets include having knowledge of the process, being capable of leading people, open to learning new methodologies and new thinking, and being able to work generally with people at all levels in the organization. But most of all, the project owner needs to have a can-do attitude. Next up is the project facilitator. Now, the facilitator could be the project owner, but it's preferable if the facilitator is a completely independent person to the process. So some organizations may have full-time facilitators, or they might bring in somebody on a part-time basis to do it. And the facilitator, ideally, will have a knowledge of lean processes and how to transform processes. But the facilitator will bring a number of skill sets with him or her also. And the single most important one is that they're able to build a team. They're able to bring people in who are quiet in the background. They're able to hold back the overzealous subject matter expert. And but they have a raft of skill sets that enable the team to gel. And the facilitator will work very closely with the project owner and with the sponsor and with the team members. And finally, we come to the last group of people in our process transformation team, and they are team members themselves. Usually, and to be recommended, the team members are subject matter experts. And what we mean by that is that they have knowledge of the process that we're going to transform. Now, not everybody will have knowledge of all of the process. We certainly need to make sure that every area of the process has representation by some stakeholder who has knowledge of the issues and what's going on in the process. People always ask, how many people should be in the team? And that's a very good question. And the number 5 to 7 always kind of rings true with me. And so we'll have the sponsor maybe sitting outside the team, but within the team who will turn up for the workshops and make it happen. We'll have the owner and the facilitator as 2, and then maybe 3, 4, 5 team members to make up the whole. And they need to be as representative of the entire process as is practically possible. It's important to note that almost always in a process transformation, there are very, very few people in the team who have full knowledge of the process. And quite often people's eyes are opened when they hear about other parts of the process and how they come to life. We don't expect everybody to be fully knowledgeable, but people do need to be involved in the process in some shape or form.
Contained in the Acclino e-learning framework, yes, and methodology. So what about the roadmap, and what tools should we use then?
Okay, so now we're on to the essence of a process transformation in a service environment. And there are numerous methodologies out there, and there are dozens and dozens of tools. And people can drown in methodologies, and they can drown in tools, and they don't know where to start, and they do a lot of Googling, and they do a lot of experimentation. But the good news is that the Acclino methodology, which has been exercised over 20 years, the same framework and the same tools deliver outstanding results in any organization where a transactional process exists. So what you'll see in your screen here in front of you is a high-level view of the Acclino process transformation roadmap. Now, if I bring you to the dark blue line there, which is the methodology, and the methodology has 6 phases in it: project initiation, process capture, process design, process development, implementation, and transformation. Now, don't let that scare you, because this is actually quite simple to follow and to understand. So let's take the first 3 phases in the methodology: project initiation, capture, and process design. And if I bring your attention down to the bottom of the framework, you can see that this can be achieved in 3 to 5 days over 3 weeks. And the reason I'm saying over 3 weeks is because most organizations can't afford to take people out for 3, 4, 5 consecutive days. So what they tend to do is maybe have 1 workshop per week spread over the 3 weeks. And that brings you through the 3 phases successfully. Booking people's time in diaries can be very, very challenging, particularly in the transactional world. So let's take phase 1, which is the project initiation. And in this phase is where we build the team. Remember, we spoke about the sponsor and the owner and the team members and the facilitators. So we build the team, and we have 1 workshop, just 1. And this workshop, the goal of the workshop is to produce a project charter. And the goal of the project charter is to have a 1 sheet of paper that people know they're singing off the 1 hymn sheet, that everyone has the same story. Because quite often, people are invited into a workshop to do a process transformation, and they're in the room for the very first time, and possibly at short notice, and they're all wondering, why we are here and what's this all about. So you can reassure people, first of all, by saying that we've got a good methodology and you introduce people to each other and we have a facilitator. And I also think it's a very good opportunity for the sponsor to take the floor for the first 2 to 3 minutes. And in these 2 to 3 minutes, the sponsor can introduce the project owner and introduce the facilitator and brings the burning platform to light. So this is the sponsor's really probably one and only opportunity to explain why the team has been put together and to create the burning platform for this process transformation, i.e. why this is important and why we need to get it done. And we all know in life that what gets measured gets done. So if we know that somebody high up in the organization is interested in this, then we will work to make it a success. So the project charter, in its essence, will state briefly where we are and where we want to get to in the process. And this is just a list of bullet points describing maybe the pain and the stress and the issues that we have with the process as it is. And we'll also describe where we want to get to. Then we'll define the scope of the project, what's in and what's out. Because clearly we don't want to fix the problems of the world. We want to do enough to transform the process. We'll also identify the risks of the process, which usually falls into 2 categories. One, the risk of us not achieving what we want to do. And also there's the risk that we may make matters worse instead of making it better. So, and finally, then we'll have a critical to success factor. What's important? I mean, how will we know that this is a success when we revisit in 3 months' time? At the end of the project charter, everybody should know where we are, what we're doing, and what we're about. Then we go on to the next phase, which is the process capture phase. And often, if I'm facilitating, I'll tell people before they come into this workshop, be in a bad mood now, because what we want to do is get all the issues out and have a good groan and a good moan about the process. And at Acclino, do not use brown paper rolls or Post-its. We've got a simple Excel file, which is a tool which you can put up on your screen, the same for the project charter and the same for the future state process map. And we fill it out as we go, and it's nice and clean and crisp, and you can make adjustments as you go along. And the great thing about our tool is that before people get back to their desks, they've got a copy of the output of the workshop. In the current state process map, the goal is to bring the process to life. And what we're doing very, very simply is we're listing all the tasks from left to right. Almost all processes can be defined and demonstrated in a linear left to right flow. So we don't need to do any fancy Visio. We don't need to show loops. We don't need to show what ifs and yes and no decisions. What I say to people is let's map a process that flows reasonably well, where we've had a good experience from left to right. Step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4, map it out. Then we go back to the first step in the process and we say, okay, what can go wrong at this step in the process? And with bullet points, we list underneath it all of the issues that can happen at step number 1. And then we repeat this for step number 2 and step number 3 and so on. Then we've got a very clever way of measuring and estimating the timeline for the process. We won't go into that today in too much detail. We'll perhaps cover this on another webinar. So at the end of this workshop, you will have your current state process mapped. Now we go on to the next phase, which is the design stage. And here we're asking people to be well fed, have a good breakfast, and come in buzzing. In this workshop, we want people to be creative and we want them to be innovative. And now what we do is we might just, if we haven't met for a week or so, have a quick recap of the current state process. But after that, we put it away and we park it. And in doing so, we're creating the opportunity to design a new fit-for-purpose process. It is very, very dangerous to tamper with the existing process, so we quickly move on to the new one and we build it up from there. And we do this on a whiteboard, and when it's built, we transfer it onto our future state process map. Then we go on to stages 4, 5, and 6. So coming out of the new process design, ideally you would go straight into the implementation phase. And what I would recommend is that we list all of the actions that we need to implement on a project tracker. And each one will have an owner and a target completion date. but there will be aspects of your new process that you need to develop and to trial. So there's usually a kind of a phase 4 testing and trialing for proof of concept of the new process design in between phases 3 and 5. And all of this is aiming towards a go live date, which will be determined by your implementation tracker. And again, I'm showing here that this could be anything from 3 to 6 months. Sometimes people get a shock and say, why can't this happen more quickly? And again, yes, it can, if two things. One, everybody could stop doing the day job, and two, and the IT people could stop doing their day job and give all their attention over to you. I'm just going to give a special mention to the IT team here, because nowadays, almost all processes have technology embedded in some shape or form, whether it's a basic Excel tool or whether we're working on systems. So there you have the Acclino process transformation framework at a high level. And this framework is followed in every single process transformation that Acclino has been involved in, and works very, very successfully.
Now, what we'd like to do is we'd like to move to a case study. So I'm going to hand back to Damien, and he will go through this case study with you guys. And any questions that you have, post them in the comment area, and we'll address them in the Q&A session at the end. Thank you for your attendance, and let's move on.
Okay, so the case study that we've selected today to share with you is one that many of you, in fact, all of you would have experienced at least once in your lives, either being hired or doing the hiring. So we're looking at a recruitment process here. And the slides that I show you will bring us through the phases of the transformation framework, which I just shared with you. But just a little bit about this particular process before we kick into the transformation piece itself. What we're looking at here is in fact a broken process. And in describing the problem, which would have been done in a little bit more detail in our project charter, I can just summarize it for you here. So in this particular organization, a new piece of software was introduced 12 months prior to the process transformation, and it was cutting-edge recruitment software. And unfortunately, it was poorly project managed. And this happens time and time again in organizations. So a big investment is made, a case study is put out there, and an investment is made in the new software, and there's no time to train, or maybe no cost allocation to training, and it's dump it in on top of the staff, and let's hope for the best and see if we can make it work. And what happens is the classic 2 or 3 things happen. One is we continue to use the old software, which quite often can be an Excel spreadsheet, in parallel to the new process, or we continue to use paper process and the Excel sheet and the new process all in parallel, and you have a little piece happening in each. And then what happens is the process starts to slow down, and the staff get frustrated working in the process. So what happened in this particular organization, in addition to getting the new software, in addition to the poor project management, there was a growth spurt in business, and there was an increased requirement for recruitment. So what happened? The process got pushed over the edge. The hiring lead times became excessive, morale was low, the blame game became initiated, and there was a lack of process ownership. So it started to creak, and it creaked so much that the good people were starting to fall off the edge of the process, and it was decided to initiate a process transformation. So phase 1, enter facilitator, and the facilitator introduces the Acclino process transformation methodology. So in phase 1, the team is built, and in this particular instance, it was difficult pulling the team together because the team needed representatives of the recruitment department, and it needed representatives from the hiring managers across the organization. With this point in time, we're not talking to each other, and it was quite adversarial from the outset. The sponsor created the burning platform, we built the team, we decided on the scope of work, we set some goals, and we completed the project charter. That was probably the easy piece. Then we move on to phase 2, which is the process capture. What you have now is a team of people who are totally new to process transformation, totally new to any type of lean thinking, and not talking to each other, and we're trying to bring this process to life. But we need to understand the process. So we use the Acclino process capture tool, and gradually we start to build the process and bring it to life. This process has 41 steps, quite complex. And when we tallied up the issues that were brainstormed, we came up with 85 process issues. And what was also fascinating was people's eyes started to be raised and said, I didn't realize we had to do that. I didn't know about that. And the communication and the lack of ownership was just popping up all over the place. And then people started to empathize with each other. And people began to realize that it wasn't people in the process who were the issue. The people were trying their best and they were working very, very hard. The problem was the process itself and the poorly implemented software. We also gleaned that the average lead time was 90 days to recruit people. And in this organization, they were recruiting externally and they were also recruiting from a bank within the organization. But this average 90-day lead time was crippling the organization. And what it meant was that the good people were falling off the process. So our output was a current state process map. And now everybody had full knowledge of the process, all of the components of the process, and all of the issues of the process. Which brings us on to phase 3, the next workshop. So what we needed to do here was to create a fit-for-purpose process. One of our goals was to go paper light. We certainly wanted to make it people-centric. And we wanted to embrace the existing technology. Well, at least some people did. I would say that more than 50% of the people in the team wanted to abandon the new software and go back to the old ways of doing things. Until one person put up their hand and said, it's not the software, it's the lack of training. And also, we gleaned that there was functionality in there that we hadn't turned on. And it became apparent that we needed to embrace the technology that we'd been given and to make it work for the process. So once we believed that the technology had been designed fit for purpose and that it was possible to embrace it, we designed a new future state process with just 17 steps in the process. Which brings us to the process development phase. So what we had a team who were excited about the fact that we could reduce this from 41 steps down to 17 steps, but we needed to prove that it would work. And we needed to gain more confidence in the system. So the team contacted the providers of the system and asked them to come on site to do more training, which they did hesitantly because the team had always been giving out over the phone about the ineffectiveness of the system. However, they sent one of their best trainers onto the site and they could see that there was genuine new enthusiasm within the team to learn how the system worked and to properly deploy this time. So the system training was a success, and one by one, we got all of the team members to buy into it and sign up to it. Then we set about doing desktop trials because we were nervous about going straight into a go live. We went into a room, we put in a number of PCs, we pretended to do the recruiting, sent out the messages by emails, by phone, and we tested our new process. And we got proof of concept. So this was going to work. We then had the confidence to go back to the management team and tell them what we were going to do, describe the changes that we were going to make, and we needed to get, to get buy-in for certain things and how we were going to communicate it to the organization. This brings us to phase 5, which is the implementation piece. And this was the most challenging piece for the team. So we have come through the moaning exercise of process capture. We've come through the excitement of innovation and creativity with design, but now some hard work had to start because 36 different actions were identified that needed to happen. And these actions were divided up between the team and target dates were set and away we went. Not because when the facilitator came back on site 2 weeks later, not one item had been implemented. Because remember, the people were still living in a bad process. The people were still struggling, they were working overtime, and they were still very, very frustrated. But unfortunately, the new process has to get implemented, so something has to happen. Either additional resources typically be brought in to support the people, or we would have to be pardoned for not doing certain parts of the process as it is. We had to regroup, we had to re-agree our deadlines and go again. And this is a very, very important piece for the facilitator and the project owner. If you don't look at it, if you don't measure it, it won't happen. Ideally, a project transformation should be measured in weeks, and the team needs to meet regularly. There's no point in sending out emails. You need to bring them back into the room. You need to sit around the table, and you need to let people vent as to why they're under pressure. And then the team needs to work with each other to make it happen. This is all about balancing the day job and sharing the workload to make it a success. Finally, we're on to phase 6, which is the process transformation. And here we have this beautiful word, benefits. What we need to do in every process transformation is sell the benefit. And you might recall earlier, I said benefits fall into 3 categories. Benefits for the people working in the process, the benefits for the organization, and the benefits for the customer. Everybody wants to know what's in it for me. So we need to identify those benefits and we need to sell it. We need to have effective communication. You might need to go on a mini roadshow. You might need to have build little forums, invite people to meetings. You might even need to put up a poster or something. But people need to know that the process is changing. They need to know why it's changing. And most importantly, they need to know how it's going to benefit them. So identify the benefits as early as you can and communicate. The word communication has the same importance as the word benefit. We need to communicate what we're doing from the outset. In every process transformation, we have to have transparency, openness, honesty, and we need to build trust with the people in the team. We need to build trust with the stakeholders, and we need to build trust with everybody involved in the process transformation. If there is a hidden agenda, you will get exposed and it will be the end of your lean journey. So be open, be transparent, and be honest. Finally, prior to go live, we need to create an air of excitement. People need to expect that something is going to happen. We need to prepare to go live. And in going live, it's a critical point in the journey, and you're switching over from an old way of doing something to a new way of doing something. And sometimes things can go wrong. They might not go exactly as planned. So the team need to be there to hold hands with the people in the process, and not necessarily literally, but they need to be there to provide support and to mentor and to fix little things that might go wrong, little glitches initially. So as a result of our process transformation in this organization, the results were very evident very, very quickly. So I've got 2 of the key tangible pieces of improvement here. The first one is that the number of process steps reduced from 41 to 17. Now, this is not always a measure of improvement, but by its nature, if you're stripping out steps out of a process, it means that you are stripping out unnecessary activity, that you're stripping out waste. So what it is, it's a very good indicator that this process has been streamlined and it's on the way to delivering for everybody. But we measured our performance, and the lead times in this particular process were reduced by 55%, from average lead times of 90 days to 40 days. It was a fantastic, resounding success for the team. So these were the core benefits, but there are additional benefits. There are always additional benefits. And in this particular transformation, what we got was optimization of a system that people had in the organization had heavily invested in. We also had a paper-light process, stripped out a huge amount of paperwork that was operating in parallel to the core process. And most importantly, we had staff engagement. So we got people buying in and reaping the benefits. And for the organization, we started to hire the best. and it meant that the best got hired. So our customers were winning. And another side effect of this was we had reduced agency spend because the organization had started to hire temporary staff while they were waiting for the permanent staff to be recruited. So just to reiterate that in every process transformation, if you follow a framework, you will get the results. If you communicate effectively and sell the benefits, you will bring people on board and you will transform any process in any organization. So I'll switch over to Stuart here now and see if we have any questions from anybody.
Very much, Damien. And if you'd like to ask any questions, I've opened up the mic to the floor, so you can either talk through the question or you can post them up by raising your hand. Now, I've got a question in straight away. John in the UK, tell us more about the design phase, please. We find this very difficult. Damien, can you take that question, please?
Okay, thanks for that question, John. And so the design phase, if we recall, is phase 4, it's phase 3 in the process transformation. And we understand in Acclino why that is a very, very challenging phase. And the reason is because it's quite easy to look at your existing process and you have something to look at and you have something to see. But what Acclino are proposing is that when you go to transform your process, you part this way. And as a facilitator with Acclino, I recommend you build up the new process from a whiteboard. So you start from scratch. So what I often say to the team is, look out the window there at the building across the way. And let's pretend we've started a new business doing exactly what we do here, providing the same services. We've gone over to that building and we now have the opportunity to build it from scratch. Day one. So forget about the pain that we have at the moment. We're building it from day one. And then I say, let's create the ideal process. Let's take a Harry Potter wand. What would our ideal process look like? Then you'll see the smiles coming in the faces and people will describe a process that could be executed in 2 or 3 steps. So I say, now there's our ideal process and it's fantastic. And we just need to press a couple of buttons and it's all done. And our goal now is to get somewhere between where we are now and that ideal process, preferably over the 50% line. What you're doing here, you're getting people into creative and innovative mode, and you get them thinking outside of the box. And it works. And sometimes what you need to do is set the ground rules at the start and say that no idea is a silly idea and everything is possible. You give people the opportunity to say what they think and to allow it to flow. And the process design phase, I often say at the start of the workshop, we need to allow a day for this. And if it takes longer, we let it run into the next day, set up a second workshop. There is no time, defined time on the design phase. You need to think it through, you need to debate it, you need to talk it, and you need to reach your decision by consensus. Gradually, people need to come on board and believe that it's achievable and that it's attainable. And always embrace technology, particularly existing technology.
Another question in from Mairead. Is it best to have an external facilitator?
That's a very good question, Mairead. Thank you. I would say an external facilitator, yes. It does not necessarily have to be external to the organization, but certainly external to the process. The more neutrality, the more independent the person facilitating the transformation is, the better. So some organizations will have full-time, maybe lean coaches or transformation people, and these people are and can be very, very effective facilitators. So yes, they'll be known in the organization, but they don't have an axe to grind because they're not working in the process. The big benefit of an external facilitator, either external to the process or external to the business, is that they don't have any axe to grind. They're not tied into the politics of the organization, and they usually bring with them a number of skill sets that enables them to get the best from people. And I often say another big benefit of an external facilitator is that they have the license to ask the silly questions. So it doesn't matter because the people in the process don't expect them to know anything, so they can keep asking why.
We've got another question in from Graham then. Have you ever utilized Lean in a cleaning or facility management company? Cleaning, I would imagine that word.
Or facility management company. And so personally, I haven't facilitated a transformation in a cleaning or a facility management company. But when I've worked in multiple different organizations in different countries around the world, and every time I go into the organization, the people ask me, have you worked in a business like ours before? And I say, no, but it doesn't matter. And I can absolutely prove categorically that it doesn't matter, because every process has people, and it has steps, it has processes, and it has issues. And for example, I work with an airline, and we did fantastic transformations there. And the director would often afterwards say, when Damien joined the organization, he knew absolutely nothing about the aviation sector. All he knew was the color of the airplanes before he came in the door. So it's just proof that it doesn't matter what people are doing, you don't have to have experience. All you have to do is bring a methodology with you. The methodology was never designed for any specific sector or never designed for any specific organization. It will work on any process in any organization anywhere. Every process is made up of a number of steps, and every step has issues. It's the framework and the application of the methodology that's consistent.
Great. I have a question internally from Gillian, and she asks about if you have a lean process or lean facilitators in-house, how can Acclino assist those to roll it out to multiple employees in different sites?
Yeah, that's a very good one, Stuart. And this is an ongoing challenge for organizations, in that the resource they had limited. So the bigger the organization, the lean coaches or the process transformation coaches, the facilitation team, they can only do so much in a day. You can bring people into training workshops, and just time consuming, and it's challenging. But if you have an organization with a lot of people, and you might be on multiple different sites, that's where the benefit of Acclino comes in. This program enables you to deliver a consistent methodology and a consistent method right across your organization. And the Acclino transformation methodology and framework and tools, which sit in our e-learning platform, enables you to scale up and roll out. And it also enables then the individuals to get the same consistent training and to learn in their own time. Because our e-learning platform is built highly visual, and it has bite-sized micro-learning pieces. And at the end of each section and each phase, there's questions there to help you to reassure yourself that you've picked up the essence of it and that you have the kernel nuggets. And also in our training, we've lists of do's and lists of don'ts. So we've taken all of our experience and packaged it into this. But the real important point here from that question from Gillian is that the Acclino technology enables you to scale up what you're doing with ease.
Very good. Thanks, Mike. You're after moving on now, and we've got 6 minutes left to bring us up to the hour. So what we do is we progress on now with the presentation, and we're coming into how can Acclino help in your organization.
Okay. So thank you very much for listening all about how we approach, about listening to our advice on where to start. And we gave you some key insights into our methodology and our framework. We also demonstrated proof of concept with a case study. And we have similar case studies from other organizations, but they follow a very similar pattern and a similar story. So how can Acclino help? So building on the last question there that we had from Gillian, is that the Acclino programs are threefold at the moment. We have a masterclass program, a yellow belt program, and a green belt program. And they're all built on the same bank of theory and knowledge and education and experience. And that, you ask me, why do they differ? Our masterclass program is targeted predominantly at leaders and managers in the organization who want to understand the theory and the thinking behind the process transformation. They want knowledge. This knowledge and the methodology and the tools are in our yellow belt and green belt programs also. But to get the yellow belt, and it's important to understand now that our yellow belt and green belt programs are university certified, and the yellow belt attracts 3 credits at level 8. The green belt attracts 6 credits at level 8 from the university. Our yellow belt program, to achieve that, you need to complete the theory and get all of the questions right at the end, and then you need to write a portfolio. Your portfolio consists of your reflections of your learning in each of the phases and how you propose to implement this in your organization. So it's getting you thinking, it's getting you primed up, it's getting you ready to participate in a project or a process transformation. The green belt is a step up in that green belt is targeted at the project owner. The project owner, to get qualified, needs to lead and deliver a successful process transformation. And typically, we find that our green belts deliver cost savings of 25 to 30,000 or pounds for their organization. Now, we're not caught up on the cost saving piece because a quality change could save an organization, and there might be value put on it at the time. So this package of training can also be provided to organizations in what we call a corporate offering. So more and more of our clients are looking to buy multiple licenses for their clients, or sorry, not for their clients, but for their trainees. Sometimes individuals will buy one license and the license is available for 12 months. But for the corporate offering, we've designed the packages so that the licenses are available for 2 years, which means that they can bring their trainees through the yellow belt program and the green belt program at their own pace and have full access to the training 24/7 for up to 3 years.
That's interesting, because that way they can reflect back on the project charter each time, and they can use the same type of tools over and over again and reflect on those tools as well as they go through the corporate package. And that package is available in the SaaS offering, software as a service. So you can take it for a couple of employees on a monthly basis and scale it up then as your organization dictates or mandates. So the next thing then is our free Lean Light module. This is an offer that Damien is extending to everybody on this course right now. And as a follow-up to this, we're going to send the Lean Light module to each delegate on this webinar today. And you're quite free to log into it and learn about the Acclino methodology. Thank you very much for your participation today. We had a good lot of attendees from across a lot of geographical areas, and we've got some very interesting questions to take away as well. Thank you so much. And if you have any further queries or questions, visit our website on www.acclino.com, and we will have a continued series of these webinars up on our website. So if you want to get involved in any of those or see any topics that relate to your organization, please feel free to join in on the further webinar series. Thank you so much, and goodbye.